The land issue is a hot topic in South Africa right now, following the move by President Cyril Ramaphosa to sign the expropriation bill into law. This will allow for the state to expropriate land without compensation if it is just, equitable and in the public interest. Law firm Cliffe Dekker Hofmeyr CDH held a webinar on this, with the firm's Burton Mayor outlining new features in the new legislation.
The expropriation for null compensation is a key inclusion, Section 12, subsection 3 of the new Act. And then obviously they've slid in a definition called public interest, which is aligned with the Constitution. So I think those are the two main inclusions, the difference between the two pieces of legislation. And I think it really is the compensation for null value. And the question is going to be, does the Constitution as currently worded, does that provide for null compensation? It doesn't refer to null compensation, but can we say, as it says in Section 25, subsection 3, that the amount of compensation and the time and the manner of payment must be just and equitable?
Racial tensions have also erupted around the new act, with some sections of the society, including farm workers, feeling targeted. The CDH's Sentebale Makara has cautioned lawmakers to ensure that the process is not arbitrary and that once gazetted, the proclamation speaks to a just action as envisioned in the sections of the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024.
The statement of intention to expropriate must have a full description of the property, a short description for the purpose for which the property is required. That's very important. The address, of course, is very important. But another thing that's also very important for me, the reason for intended expropriation of a particular property needs to be outlined. While there is understandably controversy with regards to the Act, its purpose and process of expropriation clearly evidences the property as not being susceptible to arbitrary seizing. The process has its checks and balances throughout. It's not been a situation where there's just been a land grab akin to Zimbabwe, as I've seen in some media publications. But it's actually been a situation where there's been due consideration.
The webinar also looked at the implications of the new act on financing and the risks to lenders on security. The CDH's Kuda Chimeza says property rights should be secured in funding the transaction.
I think we now need to actually start looking more carefully at considerations such as the location and the use of the land as we structure our finance deals. Going to be sufficient to just sort of identify a piece of property somewhere and gain comfort from that. The new act also contemplates expropriation for both movable and immovable property, but implications on movable property in financing transactions are definitely a space to be watched as we continue to learn more about the act.
CDH experts say most of the concerns raised have also been around compensation and redistribution in the public interest.
The focus will be on land that is not used, whether it's by organs of state or by individuals. So the first that's listed is land that is not being used and its main purpose is not being purchased for development, but specifically for the benefit of appreciation, so speculation. Then there's the organs of state don't escape this either. If they haven't used the land for their core functions, and it's unlikely that they're going to be using that land in future for their core functions, and they've acquired that land for no compensation, then they're also vulnerable to null compensation under the Act. The other factor that they've listed is if the property appears to be abandoned. So there has been no control that's been affected over the property despite being capable of being affected. So this, for example, could be abandoned buildings.
Last week, U.S. President Donald Trump issued an executive order freezing all U.S. financial aid to South Africa, citing the Expropriation Act, also offering refugee status to Afrikaners. Experts are hopeful for certainty in the rollout and looking at the Gazette for the new act to be in effect. Katlego, Legodi, SABC News in Johannesburg.